Babysitters. What was the craziest family you babysat for? Story 1. So as one family, man, they were something else. Well, I thought I'd seen it all. But these people were on a whole other level of weird. They lived in this huge old house, all creaky floors and dusty furniture, like something out of a horror movie. And the kids? Forget about it. They were like little gremlins, always running around, screaming and getting into everything. The parents, they were eccentric. The mom was always talking about her spirit guides and how they told her to bury crystals in the backyard for good energy. The dad, he was obsessed with conspiracy theories, always ranting about aliens and government cover-ups. One night, they asked me to watch the kids while they went to some secret society meeting. I was like, okay, whatever. But then things got really strange. The kids started talking about the shadow people who lived in the attic. They said they came out at night and whispered secrets to them. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever you say. But then I started hearing these weird noises coming from the attic, like scratching and whispering. I was freaked out, but I didn't want to scare the kids, so I just pretended I didn't hear anything. The parents came home late, smelling like incense and patchouli, and they didn't even seem surprised when I told them about the noises. They just said, oh, that's just the ancestors. I was like, right, of course. I never went back to that house. Story 2. My tenure as a caregiver for the redacted family presented a unique set of challenges. The residence, a sprawling estate, was a testament to their affluence, yet it also served as a stage for their unconventional lifestyle. The children, a trio of precocious adolescents, exhibited a marked degree of independence, their days filled with esoteric pursuits and philosophical debates. The parents, a couple of renowned academics, possessed an air of intellectual detachment, their conversations often veering into the realms of theoretical physics and quantum mechanics. One evening, I was tasked with overseeing a family symposium, a gathering of their equally eccentric colleagues. The discourse, conducted in a language incomprehensible to my late ears, ranged from the nature of consciousness to the possibility of interdimensional travel. The children, far from being excluded, actively participated in the discussions, their insights displaying a level of intellectual maturity that belied their years. As the night drew to a close, I found myself pondering the nature of normalcy, questioning the very definition of family. It was an experience that expanded my intellectual horizons, even as it challenged my preconceived notions of familial dynamics. Story 3. Theirs was a house of unspoken tensions, a silent battleground where words were weapons and glances were daggers. They were a couple, locked in a perpetual struggle, their child, a sweet-natured toddler, caught in the crossfire. The air crackled with unspoken accusations, the silence punctuated by the clatter of slammed doors, and the muffled sobs of a child clinging to a worn teddy bear. I was there to provide a semblance of normalcy, to create a buffer between the child and the storm raging around him. But the tension was palpable, a suffocating weight that pressed down on us all. One evening, as I was putting the child to bed, I overheard a heated argument erupting from the master bedroom. Words like shards of glass, cutting and cruel, filled the air. I tried to shield the child's ears, but the fear in his eyes reflected the turmoil within the house. I left that night with a heavy heart, wondering how long a child could endure such a volatile environment. Story 4. Okay, so this family was wild. Like seriously wild. They were super rich, lived in this huge mansion, and had a revolving door of nannies. I was just the latest in a long line of casualties. The parents were always throwing these crazy parties, with tons of booze and loud music. The kids, they were little terrors, completely spoiled and out of control. One night, the parents decided to have a couples-only party in their bedroom. I was like, okay, whatever, just keep it down. But then things got interesting. They started playing these loud, raunchy songs, and I could hear all sorts of noises coming from the bedroom. It was like a scene from a bad movie. I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. The kids, they were running around, laughing and yelling, completely oblivious. It was absolute chaos. I finally had enough and called the parents, telling them I was leaving. They were too drunk to care. I never went back. Story 5. The family's dynamic was unique. They were a blended family, a patchwork of different personalities and histories, all living under one roof. The children, ranging in age from toddler to teenager, exhibited a fascinating array of traits, their interactions a complex dance of alliances and rivalries. The parents, both divorced and remarried, possessed a remarkable ability to navigate the complexities of their blended family, their communication a model of open and honest dialogue. One evening, I witnessed a particularly poignant moment. The teenage stepdaughter, usually withdrawn and sullen, was engaged in a heartfelt conversation with her younger half-sibling. They were discussing their shared experiences, their voices filled with a mixture of vulnerability and understanding. It was a moment of genuine connection, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I left that night with a sense of hope, a feeling that even the most complex families can find harmony. Story 6. The parents were bodybuilders and had one daughter. I don't even know what her name actually was because I heard them call her so many different things. Emma, Emmy, Emery, Every, Avery, and one time Emerson. It was bizarre. Anyway, this kid would lose her mind unless I played Bubble Guppies on TV and consistently feed her cheese. I would usually try and distract her with any other snack, but she would only eat cheese. The parents encouraged me to give her all the cheese she wants. She's going through that stage where she only eats cheese. I was seriously concerned for this kid's health. For 2 years, I only ever saw her eat cheese. She was constipated almost every time I babysat. One time, I ended up feeding her an entire block of cheese in 2 hours and refused to babysit for them after that. Story 7. I accepted a tutoring position to teach German to a 16-year-old high school student. He attended a small private school and needed to pass the national German exam to fulfill his graduation requirements, as he had ADHD and retaking the course would be challenging. His mother had arranged this special accommodation with the school board. The family lived in a beautiful multi-million-dollar home in an affluent neighborhood. The father owned an African safari business, and their house was filled with fascinating artifacts, ceremonial masks, drums, and various animal displays. I tutored the student twice a week. His mother seemed to believe that a minimal amount of tutoring would be sufficient for him to pass the exam. I assigned homework, but he consistently refused to complete it. We struggled to make progress, spending weeks on material that should have been covered in a short period. One particularly frustrating session ended when I asked him to turn to a specific page in his textbook, and he responded by tearing the page out. Later that week, his mother expressed her displeasure, stating that I should have provided snacks for him and his younger brother, as they were clearly hungry. I continued tutoring for a few more weeks, but the situation deteriorated. One day, the student became agitated and started running around the house. He grabbed a decorative spear and threw it in my direction. I managed to avoid it, but unfortunately, it pierced their expensive leather couch. I gathered my belongings and left. The mother was perplexed by my decision to leave, seemingly unaware of the severity of the situation. Story 8. When I was a teenager in London, and generally pretty young and naive, I used to babysit for neighbors who had a toddler. The kid was fine. The first time I turned up there, the only parent I saw was the father. He explained that the mother was in America for work. He stuck around in the house with me for about an hour before he left, showing me where all the baby food was, etc. At the same time, he was trying intermittently to phone the mother, but never getting through. The next time I turned up to babysit, the mother answered the door in a leopard print dressing gown. When I got inside, I discovered the original guy had been replaced by a different American guy. Nobody said anything to me, so I just rolled with it. Story 9. Not a babysitter, but I worked at a summer camp. I had a kid, we'll call him Timmy, who had some behavioral issues, and he liked to hide. One time he climbed all the way into a trash can, with garbage in it, for no damn reason. I tried to work with him on his behavior issues. One day, we took a field trip. Partway through, took the kids over for a bathroom break. After they were done, I counted and realized I was one short. Me, I wonder who it is. Oh no, it's Timmy. Kids, has anyone seen Timmy? Other kid, nonchalantly, oh, he's over there, in a locker. Me, what do you mean? He's in a locker. Museums sometimes have these small lockers you can rent for like 50 cents. They're big enough for maybe a jacket or two, so you can leave your coat or a lunch in there. I estimate this one was about 15 by 15 by 36 inches. Timmy had gone full-on contortionist and managed to squeeze himself ass first into this locker. Took me a second to realize where his head was even at. I had to pull him out because he got stuck. That was the day I went from trying to help Timmy manage his problems to keep Timmy alive for the summer. Story 10. My coworker needed extra money and started babysitting. She got a regular gig with a good-looking single guy who'd adopted his niece, who has special needs. He traveled a lot for work. They started dating quickly, and he had his niece call her Mama. She was still babysitting frequently. Then, another woman contacted my coworker, claiming to be his girlfriend and pregnant. He dismissed her as a crazy ex, and they kept dating. For a month, my coworker was really happy, saying they clicked. He gave her expensive gifts and took her on last-minute trips. They started arguing because they were never alone without his niece. He told her, "You're my babysitter. What am I supposed to do?" Later, she saw a notification on his phone from another woman and checked his messages. He was dating multiple babysitters and using the same story. His business trips were with these women. He had his niece call them all mama. Story 11. House smelled like a hamster cage. They had a long-haired cat that was covered in hard chunks of matted fur the size of a human hand. The kids beat each other almost unconscious with a pair of roller skates, and I finally got them to sleep. They also refused to eat the chicken nuggets, and one of the boys cried at the sight of them. After dark, and when they were in bed, I searched all over for the light switch that had controls for the living room/kitchen, etc. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I sat in the dark for hours until the parents got home. Turns out the light switches were on the patio. Why? Story 12. I once babysat for an Asian family, and the parents basically underpaid me to tutor their children in math. And at 8 and 10, their kids were freakishly smart, and I could hardly help them at 18. The parents were both home while I babysat. The daughter started to goof off for a minute and asked if I could braid her hair like I had braided mine. When I did, the dad came in and yelled at us, mostly me, because it was time for studying. And this was not a beauty shop. It was so uncomfortable. Story 13. In high school, I babysat for a family with 2 young children. They dropped the kids off on weekends for me to watch while they worked. I noticed a few things right away. The children had significant speech difficulties, making it hard to understand them. I helped them by having them point to what they wanted, and we worked on pronunciation. Secondly, they had a strong, unpleasant odor, like they lived in unclean conditions. I also helped them with hygiene, including bathing and washing their clothes. After a few months, the parents asked my brother and me to babysit at their home. When we arrived, the smell was overwhelming. It was an extremely strong, foul odor that permeated the entire double-wide trailer. The parents left for work, and we were left with the children. The trailer was very dirty. There was cat feces throughout the house, including overflowing litter boxes, the shower, and on the furniture. The kitchen was nearly empty, so I microwaved hot dogs for the children, which seemed to be a regular meal for them. The children's room was also filled with filth and toys, and one child slept on the couch because his bed was unusable. After leaving, my brother, mother, and I discussed the situation, and we decided to contact Child Protective Services. Later, I learned that the older child was removed from the home due to behavioral issues. Thinking about the children, now teenagers, is upsetting. Story 14. My sister, who had just turned 13, was babysitting 2 girls, around 9 and 5, who lived nearby. They were kids we played with regularly. My sister usually kept them entertained with dolls and Disney movies. One day, she found the sequel to The Little Mermaid and wanted to watch it. The girls weren't interested, so my sister said, "You guys can play with your dolls upstairs while I watch the movie in the basement. Let me know when you're hungry for lunch." The girls became suspicious. 9-year-old. "Why are you watching a Disney movie? Teenagers don't watch Disney movies." They decided she was a witch, locked her in the basement, and called their mom at work. 9-year-old. "Sister's name is a witch. You have to come home. We have her trapped in the basement. She's going to hurt us. She's a witch." Mom. "What? I'm at the basement." 9-year-old crying, "No, she's a witch. You have to come home." Mom. "Okay, I'm coming home, but you have to let her out of the basement until I get there." Meanwhile, my sister was frustrated that they couldn't hear her from the basement. When they finally unlocked the door, they were holding household items and started hitting her. My sister then used pressure points to subdue them and put them in their rooms. When their mom arrived, she found my sister upset. She paid her extra and said apologetically, "You don't have to come back after today." Story 15. When I was 17, I babysat my best friend's little sister, Laura. It was summer, and I was making $25 a day, which was good money at the time. Laura was a very organized child and had a strict schedule for everything. After about 3 weeks, Laura's parents asked to speak with me and my parents. The meeting was tense, and they questioned me about my daily activities with Laura. They then asked increasingly personal questions. My dad intervened and asked them to get to the point. They revealed that Laura had said she saw me doing something mean to another child at a party the previous night. I was shocked, and my parents were concerned. I had never said or done anything of the sort in front of her. They seemed convinced of my involvement, so my parents and I left. We were worried they would involve the authorities. Later, we received a phone call. My best friend had lost his part-time job, and to hide it from his parents, had taught Laura to say those things so I would be dismissed. He could then take over the babysitting job. He confessed when his parents told him I was no longer allowed at their house and they were hiring someone else. He expressed his frustration that his plan had been ruined. I was cleared of suspicion, but I lost the babysitting job. I never spoke to my best friend again. He had left town. Years later, I ran into Laura, now grown up. She told me her brother had been sent to live with their grandmother in Boulder City and hadn't achieved much in life. She also said her parents regretted how they treated me and apologized for her part in the incident. Story 16. Okay, so these kids, right? Twins, and they were, like, sleepwalking champions. I'm not even kidding. First night, I hear this shuffling, and I see them both marching into the living room, eyes wide open, but totally out of it. They start having this full-on, silent argument, using, like, elaborate hand gestures and pointing at the ceiling. Then they both start doing these synchronized interpretive dances, like they're competing for a sleepwalking award. I swear, I almost choked on my soda. They did a full routine with the couch cushions, and then they marched back to bed. I didn't say a word to the parents. I just left a note that said, they're very active sleepers. Story 17. This family, they were super into organic eating. Like, really into it. I'm talking they had a worm farm in the kitchen. Yeah, worms. So, I'm watching the kids and they're like, want to see our pets. I'm thinking, okay, then get a hamster or something. Nope, it's a giant bin of wriggling worms. And then they start eating them. Like handfuls. They taste like dirt and happiness. I was trying so hard not to gag. The parents came home and they were like, oh, they're just getting their protein. I was like, right, of course. I ate pizza in my car. Story 18. They were artists. Like performance artists. The kids were little avant-garde geniuses. So they tell me, we're having a performance tonight. I'm thinking, okay, maybe a little play. No. It's a full-on, interactive experience. They're painting themselves with yogurt, reciting nonsensical poetry, and building sculptures out of toilet paper rolls. And then they invited me to participate. I'm like, I'm just here to watch. But they insist. So I end up wearing a colander on my head and reciting the alphabet backwards. The parents come home, and they're like, bravo! I was covered in yogurt. Story 19. Two little spoiled rich white girls told me I'm too short for my age. I'm bad at playing Barbies, said my hair was ugly, and screamed and cried bloody murder when I told them it was time for bed after I had let them stay up an hour later. They hid the TV remote from me and called me a bully and locked themselves in one of the rooms saying they were going to tell their mom I was mean and screamed at them for no reason at all. When the mom came home and asked how they were, of course I said they were fine, and she responded with, I know they're terrible. What did they do? Story 20. When I was in high school, I was very much against babysitting while my sister loved it. She would babysit for a family we were somewhat close to who had two young boys, both under 10, and who had just gotten a new puppy, a Dalmatian. One Saturday, when my sister had agreed to babysit, she realized she would be late and asked me to stand in for a few hours before she could get there. I finally agreed and got to the house. Once the parents left, the two young boys started full-out fighting, punching each other in the face and going full force attacking each other until the younger one was screaming in pain. While trying to get the older brother off the younger brother, their new puppy was sprinting around the downstairs and vomiting everywhere. The entire kitchen floor was getting covered in his throw-up as he smeared it around with his paws. I finally managed to pry apart the boys and had to spend the next hour or so picking up puppy puke. I left as soon as my sister got there and have never babysat since.
That's a wrap for this video. Make sure to leave your relatable story down in the comments. I would love to make a video on them. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.